The next time you go to bed, remember that there could be an old, decrepit woman with wiry hair and sunken eyes, hiding in the shadows of your closet or peeking up at you from the edge of your bed, waiting for the moment when you finally drift off to sleep. The Old Hag is a malevolent spirit that has been associated with sleep paralysis and nightmares, and there are tales of her that date back hundreds of years. The hag is such a common part of folklore from all around the world, and she manifests at such a frequency that it's hard to accept that it's merely a coincidence or a shared hallucination. These are some stories that people have shared from witnessing the Old Hag. User UFO Enthusiasts shared this story. My boyfriend and I have been together for 9 years now. I've always suffered from night terrors. However, that's not something you bring up on the first date. This was back when my boyfriend and I had been dating for a few months and had recently started sleeping together. We were sleeping at his place, and I woke up in the middle of the night and noticed we were holding hands. I thought it was cute, but I noticed that his hand was so pale and thin. My boyfriend has hands like an orc. My eyes got used to the darkness, and I saw his hands crossed on his stomach while I was holding a third, pale hand. As I became aware of this, something that looked like a woman with long black hair hanging over her face sat up from behind my boyfriend, looked at me, and laid back down. I stroked the hand with my thumb as you do when holding hands with someone. I don't know why I did that, I just wrote it off as dream logic. This was the beginning of our relationship, so I didn't tell him about it because I didn't want him to think I was crazy. Years passed and we're now living together. He's very aware of my paranormal beliefs and night terrors. Out of nowhere, I came to think of that dream. Did I ever tell you about that night terror I had at your house when we just recently got together? I asked him with a little laugh. I saw someone who looked like the girl from The Ring in your bed when we slept. I almost got jealous, I joked, but he didn't laugh. He got very pale and said, "Did she try to hold your hand?" I got taken aback by his reaction. I told him I did hold her hand and even remembered stroking it with my thumb. My boyfriend then revealed to me that as a child he'd have a recurring nightmare that a woman with long black hair and white hands tried to hold his hand, but he'd wake up in a panic before she ever got to him. He'd never told me this because he just wrote it off as childhood nightmares. Now neither of us think they're nightmares anymore. This next story is from user The Info Must Flow. I had a friend who showed up at my house at 4 a.m. one night, freaked out of his mind because he'd been woken up and attacked and forcibly seduced by a corpse-like woman who then disappeared before his eyes. He had claw marks and bruises where he couldn't reach. The guy was a druggie but had never hallucinated before or after, and there are a multitude of stories that are similar through recorded history. I wouldn't bet against the hag. This reality is very weird at times. This story is from an unknown user. As you know, the hag is a common sleep paralysis intruder, basically an old witch type of woman, like the witch from Snow White but not a cartoon. I've met her a few times in normal dreams, but since then I've had her visit multiple times during sleep paralysis. I usually get sleep paralysis if I fall asleep on the couch. She'll enter the room so that I can see her, but then she'll drop down and crawl on the floor so I don't know where she is. Sometimes she'll put a hand up on the couch in front of my face so I know that she's just below me. Her classic sit on your chest move has only happened a couple of times. When I have sleep paralysis, my eyes don't work like normal. It's not nice when you snap your eyes open to have an old witch a couple inches from your face. Anyone else visited by the hag? This last story is from user YR0. I've seen the Old Hag. It was so very vivid. I would say it's more like a hallucination than a dream because it feels so real. I woke up paralyzed in my bed. I could only move my eyes around the room and not move anything else. She was old and ugly with a pointy nose and messy dark long hair. She looked like a really old, wrinkled, and ugly stereotypical witch, but she ran around the side of my bed and came at me super fast. She ran towards me then, leaning over me and started scratching at my face, frantically clawing at me with long nails. I was absolutely terrified, but I couldn't feel any pain. It was like she couldn't get at me, but she was trying so hard. I was horrified she was going to be able to. Then suddenly she was gone and I could move. Did I see an old hag? I had never even heard of this concept before it happened, but I googled paralyzed and see an old witch, and the old hag thing came up. I'm not normally scared of witches, so why would I see a witch? Why not a bear or a monster or an alien or something? The fact that we all see an old lady doesn't make any sense. These experiences feel so real to people that there are at least 6 court cases from the mid to late 1800s in England involving what was referred to as hag riding, which is essentially sleep paralysis. This means that there were criminal cases due to someone's nightmares. A man in Somerset, England in 1876 accused his neighbor of hag riding. He then proceeded to kill his cat and his neighbor's cat in a misguided attempt to harm his neighbor, who he assumed to be a witch. He threatened her life and then was prosecuted for his crimes. Similar to the Top Hat Man, the Old Hag is such a common theme that it feels like it can't just be written off as typical nightmares. Why does she appear? Does she just get a sick kick out of fear? Is she some sort of interdimensional being? What are your theories on the Old Hag, and have you ever seen her?